Whether your business is small, medium, large or extra large, there's a retirement solution for every type of business. oldmutualsuperfund.co.za.
Welcome back to this post-budget analysis, coming to you live from Parliament. With me is Tuto Shumang, he's Deputy Director General Asset and Liability Management, and Matthew Simmons is the Deputy Director General of the Budget Office. Well, just before the break, we started talking about the Tax Review Commission, the study that is going to be conducted. When is this going to be implemented, gentlemen? And talk me through the process. Tuto, perhaps just to get your thoughts first.
We have appointed the chair of the Tax Review Committee, and we will announce the additional members of that review committee. At this stage, it's difficult for us to give an exact date in terms of when the review will start, but definitely in the next financial year, which is starting the 1st of April. What are the overall
objectives of the tax review?
I think that the most important objective is to evaluate to what extent the current tax system meets our needs. And you can think about our needs in a number of different ways. On the most basic level is the finances. We need tax revenue every year to finance the spending that we want to undertake. We need sufficient tax revenue so that we don't have to retrench spending in the future and deprive future generations of the benefit of that current South Africans might enjoy. The second set of issues are around equity and to what extent the tax system is aligned with the profile of an economy and a nation that we have, to what extent it contributes to those kinds of objectives. The third area that I would suggest is whether the tax system, to what extent it is able to support and is appropriate for the industry and economic base that we have, to what extent it might penalize business growth or economic activity, or to what extent it could be improved to support competitiveness or competition.
To what extent are government departments still underspending on their budgets?
Over the last couple of years, we have seen an improvement in terms of government spending, the money that is being allocated to them. We continue to see some level of underspending.
Is it still dramatic?
Well, not necessarily. Hence, we have taken the approach of reprioritizing expenditure and moving money from some of the programs that we think that they were not adding value to the mandate of government, and also taking away from those programs that were underspending to those ones that are ready to can spend, because the important thing is that the government needs to deliver certain services, and we think that those programs that are ready should be given the opportunity to move ahead with spending.
The minister held a very firm tone when he spoke about unsecured lending in South Africa, and that you are working with the national credit regulator to alleviate the situation on a number of consumers. Is this a huge risk for the economy going forward? Is the unsecured lending bubble about to burst?
I'm not sure if either of us are qualified to comment or to answer that question, but certainly what we've seen within the economy is a substantial increase in unsecured lending. It hasn't been accompanied with substantial increases in debt service costs, and at a macro level we haven't seen a considerable rise in defaulting against those kind of payments. But certainly at a household level there is evidence that it's created.
It was significant enough for the minister to make extensive mention.
It has created a level of discomfort within many households. The behavior of a number of lending organizations in terms of poorer households is a factor that has contributed towards a lot of the social dislocation that we've seen in the last few weeks, and that kind of practice does need to be dealt with. But certainly we need to ensure that we are not exposing ourselves to substantial long-term risk, and evaluate our policies and regulations of the sector in order to ensure that it is not something that turns into a bubble that can burst.
Let's come back to managing the national budget, and what plans are afoot to impact positively the budget deficit, which is sitting at that 5.2% of GDP.
I think the minister was clear about the fact that we need to grow the economy, and for us to be able to generate more revenue, and that in that way we'll be able to have more resources to afford government to be able to implement all the programs that government needs to implement. We think that the current level of the budget deficit are manageable. We'll continue to finance those borrowing requirements of government in the market. We have seen a great demand for our bond issuance, particularly from foreign investors. Also, the domestic investors continue to support us, buying our bonds, and we think that we can comfortably finance the deficit.
Can we expect new issuance to come on stream?
Over the next 3 years, the deficit is coming down. And there's our commitment to maintain our debt level at a sustainable position. Yes, we have announced about 4 fixed-rate new bonds and also one inflation-linked bond that we are going to introduce this year. The reason we have introduced new bonds is to close the gaps across the maturities or in the yield curve, and also to alleviate, issuing more into the current instruments. So we are just wanting to have more instruments that we can use to diversify our funding.
Are you expecting that foreign appetite for our debt to continue?
I think that is something that Tuto might want to speak to.
Definitely. I mean, we need to acknowledge that last year it was an exceptional year because South Africa was accepted as in the government bond, World Government Bond Index. So, having been part of that index meant that we attracted new investors.
Have we almost had a re-rating on the back of that?
Exactly. So we receive about 93 billion inflows into the bond market. We don't think that will be able to match what has happened last year. But the demand for our local currency bond market local currency bond is still there. We think that non-residents will continue to buy our bonds and support us, but not at the same rate as what has happened last year.
Matthew, the biggest positive in your view to emanate from the budget? Let's get your thoughts.
I think the biggest positive is around the message of the minister. Firstly, that the National Development Programme, along with other key programs of government, represents an opportunity for the country to engage with some of the serious contradictions and trade-offs that we need to make as a country. In order to grow the economy, to grow an economic base in which people derive their income from work, and in which government is able to receive the kind of tax policy to have the social programs to look after people that aren't able to formally access economic opportunities. The second big positive from it is the government and National Treasury demonstrating that we are able to assess the economic circumstances, the difficult fiscal circumstances that derive from that, and put in place an appropriate response at a macro level, stabilizing the deficit, but not in a way that compromises service delivery, bites into the kind of priorities that government values. It's not an austerity message, it is one of discipline.
Is it not an austerity message? Wasn't that what the world was looking for, austerity?
I think if they were looking for austerity, then I'd be very happy to have disappointed them. Austerity is a significant level change in government. It is in government spending. It is cutting into priority programs. It is limiting very strongly and very significantly growth in government spending. We have had to temper our aspirations. We've had to temper them quite significantly, but certainly
not dramatically.
Not dramatically, yes.
Tuto, in terms of coming out of the budget, your thoughts and whether the direction of the budget has now changed. We're seeing a set change happening here.
Look, I mean, the important thing I think Matthew says. Alluded to those issues that we had to make difficult decisions, and the important thing is that as government we are able to, when we are expected and required to do that, we will take certain decisions to be able to put our financial position in a very sustainable levels. That's the most important thing. The message is that government has budgeted money for certain programs. And the important thing is that all the government agencies, whether it's the national department, provinces, municipalities, should deliver on those promises.
Entrepreneurs also got a focal point, small businesses. Are we expecting to unlock a lot of growth to add to that GDP from small businesses across the board?
It would be very nice if we could do so. But I think that given the economic environment we currently find ourselves in, the opportunities for small businesses to come on board in mass are still remaining very challenging indeed. We need to grow that income growth that's going to stimulate demand within the economy, that is going to create the opportunities for new companies to come on board. And there are also, if we're honest with ourselves, a number of regulatory issues, a number of structural economic issues that we can deal with, can engage with in order to create better circumstances.
Tuto, how are you expecting the rating agencies to react to today's budget?
Well, it is always difficult to determine what will be the response of the rating agencies. However, the important thing is that we always assess the reasons, and we understand some of the rationale that they've put out for South Africa in terms of what needs to happen. Our approach to budgeting and also taking into account the development in South Africa has always been informed by government needing to deal with all the challenges that we are facing. Our finances are in a good position, and we don't think that they should impact on our ratings. We are first to acknowledge that there are two ratings that have put our outlook on we've got a negative outlook.
Ratings watch.
Negative outlook, not yet the negative.
Conrad always keeps correcting me on that.
Yeah,
he says a negative outlook from Standard & Poor's.
Yeah, and Moody's. And we think that they should maintain that position over the next 12 to 18 months. I don't think this budget should move them in a certain direction that will make them to take drastic decisions. We are committed as this government to reining on expenditure, managing our economy in such a way that, or our budget in such a way that we support the economy, but also be mindful of the fact that we need to have the deficit coming down over the next 3 years, and we are committed to that.
3.1% by 2015, yeah. 2016.
Yes. I mean, the reason the deficit has widened in this fiscal year is a result of the lower revenue.
As Minister Gordon pointed out to me earlier as well.
Exactly. It is too difficult for us to change anything now. We are only left with 1 month of the financial year, so we can't cut the deficit now.
Thank you so much for your time, Tuto and Matthew. Well, that's it, coming to you live from Parliament with more budget analysis. And after the break, we've got Samantha Loring taking you into Business Tonight. Again, more business budget 2013 focus.